Hello guys, so hopefully I can get you guys through this tutorial for importing your Browzwear designs into Daz3d. Yes, it can be done. Is it easy? No way, it is not easy. So the first step in your creation is to create your avatar, your exclusive design to your avatar. You can change her body shape to what you want it to be. You can change her face to what you want it to be. And you can just go ahead and give her the shoes that you want. I do advise putting shoes on before you go into your Browzwear simulation, just so that you have the correct height and the correct hang for your garment. So I'm gonna just add shoes here. Actually, forgive me because my file system in Daz got messed up, but I will be fixing that very soon. So we're just gonna go ahead and add the shoes again. Make sure that our avatar is selected so that we can add the correct shoes for the correct avatar. And we can go ahead and import that in. And always remember to Control D will keep your avatar on ground level. So Control D is very important in Daz3d to just make sure your avatar is above ground. Sometimes when you change the shoes, you can go underneath the ground. So let's just keep Control D in play. So right now we're going to go ahead and export our avatar as an OBJ. And you can see from my OBJ settings, I just removed the textures. So there's a checkbox that's called Write Textures, and I just untick that so I don't have to change her skin and go back and forth trying to get the skin that I want. That's a very important detail in Daz. So now I'm going to go ahead and pick my pose, because what we're doing here is sort of an animation but sort of for a posed garment. So we're going to go ahead and select our poses. Again, Daz is very versatile when it comes to all of the wonderful poses that you can get and create. I like to kind of do top and bottom poses. That way they get a little bit more customized and not your ordinary poses that you see. You can kind of customize them and tweak them the way that you want. So I kind of like one of these top and bottom type of pose. So we're going to go ahead and pose her, but we're not going to pose her all the way. I've added 80 frames, and what I'm going to do is pose her about halfway, a little bit more than halfway, and then I'm going to allow the keyframe at the last pose. I'm going to add a keyframe at the last pose, so at the last keyframe, so that in Browzwear she can kind of hang a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and save her out right now as an MDD file. So right now the MDD file is under Modo. Make sure you set it to 100%, type it in, and then you'll see it'll just cycle through and export the MDD file that we'll use in Browzwear. Okay, so jumping into Browzwear, I've already created a garment based on the A pose without textures. So what I'm going to do is bring in the avatar so you can see what it's like to add the OBJ file into Browzwear and set it up as your own custom avatar. The arrangement points are actually building bones right now, or a skeleton. The avatar that you see here does not have any bones. The bones do not get exported in OBJ file format. So you have to go ahead and place these important joint anchor points. And with the anchor points, my advice is to make sure that you follow the directions in the little window, but just make sure that they're pretty much aligned. One of the things that I found is that the best thing to do is to make sure that they're aligned on the body, like with each other. If you can kind of see from the side view, I try to set them up in the same linear placement on the arm and on the leg, and just keep moving them and arranging them if you need to go ahead and revise the avatar. If you see it's doing something a little weird, you can go back and change it. So no worries there. I'm gonna go ahead and just dress this avatar. Something a little different for me. I don't really do you know, avant-garde stuff. You usually see me doing just a little bit of a little dress or something like this, but this was fun to do. And this is some of my custom fabric you can find on ArtStation at the end of the month, which we are at the end of the month. So I'm going to go ahead and post those for you guys by April 30th. So if you're watching this, it is the 28th of April, and I'm going to be sending you guys some fabric soon. So let me just get through this. You know, the struggle is real, but I'm going to go a little bit faster so I don't bore you with all of the pulling and tugging that I end up doing. One of the ways that you can get around this is to go ahead and just reset. For some reason, my fabric is very drapey. I hadn't changed the grid distance, so it is a little bit drapey, and I'm just dealing with that at this point. I don't want to redo it, so I kind of like go ahead and change the grid and go back and resimulate it again. But you can often just go ahead and take the piece that's giving you a problem or that has a collision issue with the avatar, and then you could go ahead and just use in 3D check box, you know, check that box off and then check it back on again, and then resimulate the piece in the position that you want. So this is just something you know, critical to your Browzwear workflow, that you're able to go ahead and just take a piece off. You'll see me do that for the collar in just a sec. And basically you're just telling the software to start over again. Like with the collision from third-party avatars, sometimes it's a little bit severe because they do have a higher resolution, so sometimes it's easier to get the fabric caught up in there, just like on the face here. But what I often do is just resimulate after unchecking the box for using 3D, which you'll see me do in just 1 second. So there it is, using 3D. Take that off. I took off one layer, and then I'll go ahead and take off the other layer, and then I'll check them both back on at the same time and reposition the collar where I want it to go, and then I'm all set. So back into our simulation for Browzwear. Make sure you save your snapshots. Snapshots are us. In Browzwear, it's important. So let's get back to just saving out this jumpsuit as an OBJ. We will show you that later on in the tutorial, what exactly that's all about. So let's go ahead and get back into our posed animation. If you notice, I do not have animation poses on. I'm using a animation to make my poses. I'm not bringing in separate pose files, is what I mean to say. I'm not bringing in separate pose files for my avatar. I'm bringing in an animation that will animate to a pose. This is one of the secrets of getting it back into Daz. Okay, so now I am in the animation mode, and I'm going to bring in the MDD file for the avatar, and that is the animated pose file, like I was just saying. So with this animation, we're going to animate to a pose, and that's how we're going to achieve our simulation for Daz3d. So once everything is dressed, once your dressed avatar is finished, you want to make sure that you are your timeline record button is active. So that's this little button right here, and you can go ahead and just start to record your timeline, but make sure that your frame rate is the same frame rate you used in Daz3d. Make sure that that's matched up. Mine was at 30 frames per second, and that's called the FPS. So my FPS is at 30 frames, and I'm ready to record. And I ticked on follow the avatar. We don't really have to follow her because she's not walking right now, but I just ticked it on. And we're gonna get through this a little bit fast. So what you see is that she's going through, cycling through the animation, and I'm gonna skip ahead really quickly so that we can see what happens in the finishing. So one thing I will say is that at this point you do have the opportunity to use your styling tool, if you may, to just get a couple of fabrics in the right place. If you need to start moving things around during your simulation, this is a good time to do it. The styling tool is active, just like you would do with finishing. You would just click it on and off and style it the way that you would normally. But right now I'm just going a little bit fast so you can see that I'm trying to give the fabric a little bit of time to rest after the pose is complete. But you have the opportunity to have all of these frames in play. So back on our regular thing, we can see that everything is simulated the way that we want. We can go ahead and replay the pose back to ourselves just to make sure that we are liking what this animated pose is doing at the end of the animation. So you can go back to the beginning and you can just play it out and see what happens to the whole pose. Remember that you have 79 frames. That's important to remember for Blender. Right now we're going to go to the export to the 3D tab and we're going to export as Alembic. We're going to give it its own folder and we're going to make sure that we know where it is, name it properly, and then name the file properly. It actually creates a folder if you name the file. Alembic creates the material file and the UVs and all of that. So you can go ahead and do that. So now we're going to go into Blender. Do not be afraid. Blender is free program, and if you're just following this tutorial, it will be easy to use. So we're going to go ahead and get our Alembic file and import it. You don't really have to do more than that. You have all of these things highlighted on the side. Do not tick anything on the side menu unless you're going to have to highlight everything again that says garment. Right now I'm playing at a frame rate that is a little bit faster than my recorded frame rate. So like if you click on one of these things, the whole thing is just you're only clicking on the pieces. So just remember you need to have everything selected. So yes, I have 79 frames. And I need to extend my animation in the timeline window. You can see that little window there. I just typed 81, but now I'm going to change my frame rate back to 30, which is what the recording is listed as. And now I'm all set. All set for what? All set for exporting. So now that I have everything matched up, I'm just double checking myself so I don't mess you guys up with this tutorial. But I'm going to go ahead and export now from Blender. I'm going to go to the first frame, make sure my frame count is exact, and I'm going to go back to the first frame, checking everything is highlighted. I'm going to export as Wavefront OBJ. I'm going to put it in the same folder, but I'm going to give it its own folder called Sequence. Now I just go back to check one thing here because I think I have something different. Hold on one second. Yeah, so now I'm going to go ahead and export as the OBJ. I think I had the wrong thing ticked, so it wasn't showing up. So now export OBJ is showing at the bottom. I'm going to make sure that I click animation because this is an animation. And I'm going to just check keep vertex order. The Z and the Y, just make sure that it's Z forward, Y up on your axis, and then you can go ahead and export. It's pretty fast, but I'll tell you why it's pretty fast is because there are no materials on this. So right now we exported the Alembic. We just exported it in out with the materials, but we imported it in without the materials. So you'll see once we get it into Daz, the materials will not be there. There are two sides to the story. We'll get into it in just a second. So as this is exporting, it does not take long. We can go ahead and go to Daz and start there. Okay, now we're jumping into Daz and we're going to walk through what we're going to do with our animation. So we've got our model and we've got our OBJ sequence. If you want to just import the last frame for the last frame, you can do that, and you can go ahead and just use this file to recreate your materials. Your sequence files do not have the materials attached. So we're just going to walk through that part of it in a sec. You could also do that on the first frame. So you have every frame that you have is in this OBJ sequence. So we're going to start with this one, right? And we're going to go ahead and open our Morph Loader Pro. If you don't know where to find that, you can find it in the drop down menu, or if you have your setup like me, you can do that. Highlight all of your frames in your sequence except for the first one. The first one is going to be your base, and then everything else is going to be imported for each frame with the Morph Loader Pro. So it's actually creating a morph for your garment, so that every step through the simulation, it's treating the garment as a morph. Right now I'm going to use the Animorph script. There's also a script called I forgot the name of this script, but I'll link it in the bottom. So what it does basically is it creates a morph key for each frame of your animation, and it puts that animation in 100% for that frame. So if you look at like frame 50 or something like that, you'll see that every step it's moving your morph slider over to 100, and that's how it creates the animation. So it's a lovely script. There are two. I will link them in the description. So now I'm just gonna go ahead, and now that I got my animation set up, I'm gonna start over because I don't have any materials from our exported 3D files. So we exported this 3D as an OBJ from our timeline. So let's give this another thing here. Just export the first frame from your timeline and as an OBJ, and that will have your materials attached. It will have all of your UVs and everything all attached for all of your fabric texture types. So now I imported that. Again, I have to go to the cutout opacity because I can't see the garment, but it's showing in the list. So now I have my materials, and now I have my, I can apply my morphs from my OBJ sequence. I have my materials, I have it on the avatar in the right position, and I can use my animate script and a morph script, and I'm here, and I've got my materials. So now if you notice, the materials are there, but they're one singular material, not a material for each piece, but it's a singular material, and it's utilizing your UV map. So this is the best way that I found to get everything together at once. So that's exporting the first frame from your animation, which will have your material UVs applied. And you can go ahead and just utilize Daz to recreate some of the finishes and sheens that you don't have from your you know, every 3D program treats materials a little bit differently, so you can just use your sliders to just increase your gloss, increase your texture, your normal map, all of that stuff, and you will be able to achieve the look you want. So right now I'm just going through and I'm doing that, but that is pretty much the tutorial in a nutshell. I'm trying to get through this for you in about 8 more minutes. And there's my sheen to my fabric, and you know, it's great because you can dial it up and dial it down. Sometimes, you know, with Daz you have to make sure that your, you know, fabric matches your lighting, or you know, the fact that it's flexible is a good thing. So now I'm just gonna go through, and I'm happy with my simulation. I could go to any keyframe and simulate my pose. What I'm doing now is parenting the actual garment to the avatar. So you can go ahead and parent to the avatar. I'm going to go ahead and start creating my avatar. And then you have it. I mean, this is the fun part, now that you've got the garment on and in a singular pose. And the same thing works if you have any type of animation. So just like Tom from the Digitals, he got me through 3/4 of this tutorial, and I thank him for all of that, as you saw in the beginning. But It is possible to use Browzwear. You just have to make sure that you have Blender installed on your computer. Remember, you may have to have a little bit more of a powerful computer because you will be using VStitcher, Daz, and Blender at the same time, and that can get a little bit heavy on your computer. So what you might want to do is just go ahead and make sure you save all of your files so you can close stuff down. My computer is pretty good computer and it was smoking. The fans were going. Right now I am just subdividing the mesh in Daz. This is something I didn't do in Browzwear, but I'm doing that now. So I'm going to go ahead and just edit the geometry and use the subdivision, and that's it. So just keeping it simple a little bit of the way through. You can go ahead and design your scene, design your avatar. Just remember things like hair and accessories and all of the different customizations that you can do in Daz is what I'm doing right now, and then you'll see the final render at the end of the video. Again, this works with any animation. I will link to the video from Tom, and I will link to my video on how to use Daz and create characters so that you can see that a little bit better and just have fun with it. It's about time that people started really using Browzwear to create some awesome awesome animations, awesome renders. The iRay render is really great with lighting and sheen and all of that. So these are Cake One's products, and she does a fantastic lighting product that I like, but I will modify it at the end and use a few more different ones that I like. But here's the thing, once you start using Daz, you start to go through and cycle through all of the wonderful things that you're able to purchase on the Daz store to enhance your animations and renders. But guys, that's it. I'm going to leave you with a little more music as I go through this, and you'll see the final render at the end. Thanks. Okay guys, so in my attempt to keep this short, I did forget something. Someone pointed out that you may be working with prints. So I'm adding a print to this jumper, and I'm gonna have to start all over again. So you know what it is to work in Browzwear. You gotta make sure everything's lined up and aligned before you go ahead and start simulating. So I'm just gonna jump into it right here, and we shall see what is needed for this part of it. So now that you go back into your animation tool, you got your printed garment updated, and you're going to let it simulate and finish, and then you're going to click your animation button. Like I said, your animation button will show up once your simulation is finished. So what I'm just looking at right here is where I kind of wanted it to be. Like I said, on the timeline, you have 60 to 80 frames in this exercise, so you can go ahead and you can render out any frame you want in Daz, but I just wanted to see which one was appealing to me. So now I've clicked my render button for my animation render, and we're gonna go ahead and just simulate this garment in the animation window in VStitcher. So what I found is that sometimes when you're doing this, you may experience doing it several times, so it's important to name your files so that you don't get mixed up as to which simulation goes to which Blender sequence. So if you want to just go ahead and make one file for each try that you do, then you could just delete the other ones if it gets too heavy for your computer. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to export the OBJ out first, and I will tell you why in just a bit. So I'm going to export that out, and then I'm going to go ahead and check my maps and make sure I know where everything is at. Now I'm going to export my Alembic file so that I can take it into Blender. I'm going to go back to Blender. This is just a repeat of what we've already done. So what I'm going to do is just go through this really fast, and we're going to get back into Daz, and I'm going to show you what it's like to work with prints. Prints have a little bit of a different aesthetic to what you have to do. Solid's pretty cut and dry, but when you're using a print, you kind of want it to look the same as it does in Browzwear. But I will tell you that Browzwear handles prints differently than other programs, so you kind of have to understand a little bit about how their print resolution works and how it's native to appear high resolution in the VStitcher program, because that is their goal. They want you to be able to have less data but still have it look really great. But in other programs, you kind of need to have a high resolution map. So we're going to go ahead and figure out how we can get to this. So I'm just importing my OBJ. So now this OBJ is great. I've got my maps here, but I'm trying something out that just doesn't work. So I just imported the Alembic that goes with this and my morph, and I'm thinking, you know, hey, this looks great, until I realized that my Browzwear resolution must be to the desired real scale. So now I'm zooming in and I'm like, oh boy, like why is this? Oh, so I'm doing this so that you guys can not get frustrated and know what to do. So you could just watch me get frustrated. So here it is. Basically, I am trying to figure out, like, yeah, like, is there any way to increase the map resolution in Daz? And there's no way. But there are different things that you can do. If your map is not high res, you're not gonna get through to Daz. So I'm just trying to look at different sliders and seeing if that's where. No, it's not gonna work. So I basically digress and go back to Browzwear, and I want to check out what my resolution is for my print, and I see that it's 72 dpi. So then I'll go ahead and increase it, but then I don't like the scale, but then I don't have the resolution, but I don't like the scale, and something's gotta give here. So guys, check it out. Get the scale in Blender, I mean in Browzwear VStitcher that you want, that you can accept. Increase your maps. When you output your maps, and I'll show you that in just a second, that is the most important thing working in between Browzwear. In the meantime, you can go ahead and search your library in Daz. Now you remember your material map is just one huge map. So if you decide to change a material with a material that you have in your Daz library, you can go ahead and do that with one click. But it will not give you the contrast material zones that you may need for your garment simulation. It will just cover, it's easier if you have just a garment that's just a singular thing. But if you want to import your own print and you don't mind that it's covering the whole garment, you can go ahead and do that, and you can import that into the base color. And basically you can have the scale work for you whichever way you want. The way you change the scale is to go down, scroll down to tiling. If you adjust the tiling one way or the other, horizontal or vertical, you'll get some different effects to your print. If you want it to scale all the way up, you just click the lowest number, which I believe is 1. And if you want to scale it higher, usually I do around 10, and that is kind of suitable for what most designs require. Like 10 is kind of a good scale. So you can go ahead and play with the scale of your own print. Right now I still have the Daz library texture maps in the different areas, so you could just go ahead and change those, but I kind of liked it, so I was like, okay, let's keep that there. But what about if I want my high resolution print to come in with my contrast color? So I gotta go back. All right, so I jump back into Browzwear, So I want to work with my maps, but I do have to resimulate again in order to just get the fresh, the maps that match each other. And I'm basically just doing this all over again for you guys so that you can see from scratch from this point what you need to do all together. I do like to show you some of the things that you might encounter just in case you need an answer to a problem that you are having. You could always come back to the video and see what might come up and the reasons why. That's the reason why I kind of go through those things. I know some people don't like it, but I think it's valuable for learning. You can learn from mistakes, you can do anything. So here we go. So now I have my animation all ready and rendered out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my exports, and I have my map is increased. So basically the scale of the map is to my desired liking. And I'm gonna go ahead and tick off my avatar. I'm gonna create a folder to save my things to, just so that I can remember where everything is. Snap back, export the Alembic file, and get back into Blender really quick. This is going super fast because you've done this, you know, 20 minutes ago you were doing this. So yeah, so back in Blender, I'm gonna go ahead and change my animation. I'm gonna render everything out, and I'm gonna bring it back in to my Daz3d. So now I'm back in Daz3d with my higher resolution map. I zoom in and wait a minute. What happened? Why isn't it higher resolution? This is the desired resolution that I have. So it's not 72 dpi, it's higher. It's the right scale. So why is it still so blurry? Here is the trick. You have to go back into VStitcher. On export of your OBJ and your Alembic file, you're gonna need to make some changes. So I can go ahead and I can try to like increase the resolution, and in Daz3d it just will not work. So I'm gonna go ahead and import my morphs, and I'm just gonna continue on because then I'm gonna go back. So once I have everything morphed out and ready for animation in Daz, I'm just gonna go ahead and make some changes for the other program. Okay, so I'm back in VStitcher. The important key here is to export. You have to also export your maps to a higher scale. So now I'm changing these from 1084 to 4096, and those are the bigger maps. So now you want to save those out in your OBJ format so that you have those high resolution maps as well as your correct scale in VStitcher for your material file. So those are the two things that you have to do. Export at a higher rate, and also make sure that your material is scaled properly for printing. So here we go. We're going to go back into Daz3d, and now that I have my Alembic already mapped out for my animation, I don't have to redo the animation at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and get back into Daz3d. Okay, so let's just make sure that we are exporting for our high resolution maps so that we can put them all in the correct place when we get into Daz. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure I delete all of my retries and redos and stuff that I don't need in this folder, because now I've got my solution. Now I've got my resolution on my materials matched, and I've got my resolution on my UV exports matched, and everything is exported from VStitcher. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to import the first frame. I'm going to find my I have to find that folder, right? Because wait a minute, is this the folder? I don't know. Oh, what can happen, guys, is that if you're doing this more than once, you don't rename your folders, which this has happened to someone who tried out this experiment. And you may not understand why this is happening. every time you export the animation, it's not the same. So just because the animation is the same doesn't mean your folder is going to be the same. So if things are not matched in your Alembic file with your animation, you can't use the previous one. You have to use to make sure that they match. So just make sure that you use the correct files, because you'll see what happens when you don't use the correct Alembic files that match each other. You will get an error message in Daz3d. So we're going to go ahead and try to morph. You'll see that I'm morphing the wrong files to the wrong OBJ in the first frame. So I have my first frame all set up, but I'm importing the wrong OBJ sequence, and I'm getting this error, geometry not matched. So because my geometry is not matched, it means that those folds and those animations are all different from the previous rendered animation that I did. So I need to go ahead and make sure that I use the correct one. That's why file naming is very important at this point. So I'm just going to double check. What did I name it? I'm going to try again and see where my files are and see what did I name it. Okay, I gotta go find that one. Great. So now I'm going to go ahead and do that, and you will see that it is a smooth transition. And then we'll go ahead and import our maps into the correct places, and you will see at the end everything is groovy. Just going to navigate to that folder and make sure that it is the one that I saved out. Just make sure they match. I've done this several times, so you can see that several folders have been made. And just go ahead back and delete the ones that you're not using. You've already discovered that that's not working. Delete the files, redo it, start from a clean slate. And here we go. Now I found the one that I need. So I'm gonna go ahead and import the first OBJ. Got it. And then I'm going to import my animated sequence. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'm going to go ahead and check my maps first, since that is the point of this exercise. It's all about the maps. I'm going to go ahead and look for my OBJ map. That is the high resolution map. And it's not there. So guys, just bear with me as I figure out where it is. The high resolution one. There it is. Now I've got it. So now I'm going to zoom in, of course, because I cannot believe that. Is it still blurry? Yes. Let me find the other one, because this has got to work. I'm doing it for you. Here we go. Yes, 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 yes. So the 4K resolution is what looks best in Daz. Yes, it's a big file. Yes, it's good, but this is how Daz handles, you know, if something's 72 DPI, it's gonna look like 72 DPI in Daz. But in Browzwear, it's optimized, and it's a little bit better for rendering low resolution images in Browzwear, so that it will still look good. You can change your maps on your OBJ sequence in the first frame, so it doesn't matter where you change the maps at, because they're all there. And then you could go ahead and add the subsequent maps, like your bump map, your normal, your gloss, and all of the other maps that you have. And now you're ready to kick off your animation and proceed to your render. Yep, just put in all your displacements, all of your metal maps, all of that gets exported in Browzwear. If you need other maps, you may have to make it in the third-party software from your base map. But right now, these are good enough for what we need for our exercise. And here's my morph files. So I did all of that on the first frame OBJ. And now I'm going to import my Alembic morph OBJs into my Morph Loader Pro, and I'm going to run the script. I tried to create labels for you guys so you can kind of see where I'm at different points, but along the way I will give you tips, so hopefully you can stay for a while through the video. You know, I tried to make it 25 minutes, but then the whole print topic came up and the error message came up, so I wanted to make sure I covered that for you guys. I hope you don't mind. It's a little long, but we're learning together, so here we go. Yep, so here we are, just like uploading the whole thing, and I'm gonna stop this and go for so like I said, everything needs to be synced together with your different exports. Just delete an export if it doesn't work out for you, UV wise or simulation wise. Just delete it, start all over again, rename everything, try not to use the same names over again. I don't have to talk to you guys about the script because that was in the beginning of the video, but now we're going to run this and we're going to check out the end result. We've got our maps all together, and I think we got it, guys. I think this is it. She looks great. So I can go ahead and render this out and it will look like high quality textures, which is exactly what we want to show the world. And this is our success. So thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you learned something. Drop a like, subscribe if you haven't. If you stayed this long, you definitely should subscribe. I will be doing more Browzwear videos and we will all be successful together. So I hope this is working for you guys. Thanks again.